everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Split, the young adult book review podcast for readers and writers. I'm Bryan Cohen, the author of the Ted Saves the World series. That's Robert Scanlon, author of the Dreamer Chronicles, with a new background. You can see stuff to his right instead of his left. I feel like I'm seeing a whole new side of you, Robert.
It's the upside down thing. I think, I thought the Southern Hemisphere deserved more exposure than this, and giving you a tiny glimpse of the other parts of it. How are things for you? Is it the big cold still?
Yeah, it was one of those days, and you get them in Chicago. You see like, oh yeah, it's kind of snowing out, and you assume it's like, oh, just a few flakes here and there, and you look out in the morning, it's like, oh, it was 6 inches.
Right.
And that's just and it's fine because you got your boots, you've got all your coats and your gloves and your hat, and you're ready to go.
And passing children to throw snowballs at.
I got a snowball story for another show, but for today, I'd love to talk about The Selection by Kiera Cass because it was awesome. I just really liked it. So it was right up my alley. I mean, reality TV show, girls, dating. Oh yeah. It's all me. So, as per usual, we're going to do the summary, what we thought from a reader's perspective, writer's perspective, takeaways, and the prompt of the week. Robert, are you ready for this?
Oh, I'm so ready. And this is for sure going to be The Split.
Yes. Oh, I'm excited to finally have a book we're split on. All right. America Singer lives in a world where everyone is born into lives that are chosen for them. There's only one way up the rigid caste system, and that is the selection. 35 girls will compete for a chance to win the prince's hand in marriage and a shot at changing their entire family's fate forever. When America beats incredible odds to be chosen as one of the 35, her heart remains with Aspen, her secret love, in a caste below her. When she meets Prince Maxon, America realizes that her future may hold much more than she bargained for. Man, I'm so excited to hear how you disagree with me. But I really enjoyed this book. And even though it's basically combining the Hunger Games and the reality show The Bachelor, I couldn't put it down, which means I couldn't take my headphones off because I listened to all the books. It was really hard for me not to buy the sequel immediately to see what happens. I actually, aside from books I read before the show, I haven't read any sequels because we just don't have the time. But that's my first thought. Robert, what's your first thought?
You're obviously quite taken by this beautiful fairy story.
Were you angry when you read this?
No, I don't know. You're so
all right,
shallow, Bryan. You're so shallow.
Lay it on me. I want to hear.
Well, I didn't like it. And I just thought it was... I really must apologise to the author, Kiera Cass. She seems lovely. And, I did a little bit of homework. And Kiera, if you'd love to come on the show one day, then please come on the show. This is about your story, and it's not about you. But I hated it. I really had to work hard to finish it. I thought the story was stupid. The names were stupid. The prince was a dork. About the only thing I liked was some of the dialogue that she gave to America. What's with the names? America, Aspen. It's these weird. Some of them are fantasy names. Some of them are everyday names. Some of them are names that all begin with the same letter. I just found some of the prose cheesy, and it didn't. And so I went and looked at the reviews, and this book gets a 4.4 star average with more than 2,200 reviews. So it's clearly me that's the problem, not the book. So.
You're allowed to not like something.
Yeah, and you loved it, but I just found it shallow, stupid, a poor imitation of things that are much better done. Yet clearly it's tugged at the heartstrings of many young girls and aspirational male authors around the world.
When we get to the writer section, I have a comparison for it, the testing, and I think it does some things better than the testing. Yeah. But I don't love the name either. I think America Singer is stupid as a name.
As a name.
But I like her as a character.
Yes.
I enjoyed being in her head.
Yes.
She's not a pushover. She doesn't fold under the pressure. Because there are things in this book that are similar to Divergent,
Yes.
but the main character is not one of them.
Yes.
America is much more interesting to me than Triss.
Yes.
And so that meant something to me for sure.
Yes, I agree with you there. I think I would one star the book. I think from my perspective in terms of entertainment. But if there's a saving grace, it would have been America, the character. And as I said, some of her lines are really good. The way she responds to some of the other characters and reacts. The thing that I didn't like about her is that she's got this sort of classic, no, there's nothing special about me, but everyone thinks she's stunning and beautiful and incredible and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. We've heard it all before. Thank you, Cinderella. So, it was a bit cliched for me, that part of it. But you're quite right. I think Kira Cass did a really good job of maintaining character consistency there, unlike almost every other character in the book, which seemed to be very inconsistent. At least the main character protagonist was consistent. And you're right, more interesting than Triss, yes.
Yeah. Last thing from a reader perspective, the number cast system is, I agree that that's a little dumb. It's simplistic. But I think, and maybe I could be wrong, haven't read any of the other ones. Maybe they're going to play that up a little bit going forward. I know that we didn't like Divergent, and some readers have said they play up the other factions later on, but then other people say, oh, well, they didn't do anything with it. But I'm giving it a chance for the. It's one of those. I don't know if I could see how this society would work, but I'm willing to give it a chance because I enjoyed it, because I like the main character. That's my final reader thought.
Look, I got a 1-star review for one of my books this week, and I can kind of see where the reviewer was coming from. It wasn't savaging; it was just a critique of the story and the things that might be missing. I mean, there is no such thing. We've said this before, as a perfect story. So clearly, this one is loved by lots of people. It is a fairy story, really, and when it boils down to it, and maybe my expectations were set by thinking that it was going to be more like the Hunger Games, but really it was more like a fairy story. And so, there are things in there that the caste system doesn't get explained as to why why they've arrived at that. It doesn't really detract a lot from the story. So I didn't. I mean, lots of things in fiction, there's always something contrived, isn't there? Because that's what makes the story. So you have to contrive something. And in fantasy fiction, particularly young adult, a lot of that is the world and the things that these teens are pitted against, because that's the trope. That's the thing that the reader wants, Yeah. I'm growing up in the world and there's something I want. And it'd be kind of cool if the prince loved me, but, it doesn't really matter that much, does it? So in that respect, I think that it hits every nerve for sure. So I think that's probably why it just doesn't appeal to me, because that's not where I'm at in life.
No, I totally understand that. All right, let's talk about it from a writer's perspective. Here's my thought. One of our critiques for the testing was that it started off kind of boring. It got better as it went along. What I liked about the selection was that it had some high emotional stakes from the beginning with the boyfriend.
Yes.
Whether or not you like the boyfriend.
Yes.
And I don't love, I won't get into spoilers, but when there's more with the boyfriend, I don't know if I love that as much. But at the beginning, there's high emotional stakes. She's in a rough place after their relationship status changes. And I think that investment between America and Aspen really helps to get readers invested from the beginning, versus the testing, which you need like a quarter of the book to get into it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good call, actually. I hadn't even noticed that, but now you pointed out, it makes sense to me that the tension created by the difficulty with America and Aspen maintain their relationship moving forward does create some good tension through the first half of the book, that's for sure. Whether it's resolved well or not well, yeah, that's another thing for sure.
Well, there are, 4 books and a couple of novellas, so...
in my opinion, this is not even a book. The plot doesn't resolve. It just ends.
That's really true, because it almost feels like a serial.
Yes, definitely.
It's very serialized because it's very short, and I don't know how many words it is. I'm guessing it's 50,000 or less.
No, it's more. It's
really?
Yeah, it's close to 80. You'd be surprised.
I know, really?
I know.
Wow, the narrator must have been reading it fast.
Yeah, and this is probably one of those times where, thinking about it, the audio version may well bring a story like this way more to life than read it in text as well. So, because the
performance was good.
Okay, yeah, and that can make a difference for sure. I mean, we've all heard authors reading their own work at, say, book readings, and that can be deathly dull. Even for the best book. So I think audio can turn around. So some of our differences in opinion
could be the result of that. Yeah,
kind of exaggerated by the medium that we're using. The other thing I thought from a writer's perspective is that if this book had been written by a male. And it was exactly the same story, I wonder if it would have been called out as being misogynistic. Because it is The Bachelor. It is a group of girls going in a beauty contest to be chosen, quote unquote, by some fine, upstanding young prince. And I don't know that fits our modern equality culture. So that's why I pigeon it firmly in the fairy tale side of things, because that's fine. If you set up as a fairy tale, then there are always going to be things that are all about boys, and there are always going to be things that are all about girls. But it did occur to me after I read it, I don't know if a male author would have gotten away with writing that story. And they may, you can just imagine reviews coming in, how dare they pit these girls against just typical men, blah blah blah. But anyway, so that was a thought.
Yeah, well, millions of people still watch The Bachelor.
Well, exactly. So I'm just, one cranky guy who just doesn't agree with the world, obviously.
One thing, talking about The Bachelor, I was thinking from the beginning, I was like, okay, this is going to be like the Hunger Games in that they're portraying this as a TV show that they're showing everybody. That the Capitol or whatever is going to film every aspect of their lives and show it out, and none of their conversations are going to be secret, et cetera, et cetera. That was what I thought was going to happen. That didn't happen. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I thought it's an opportunity because it would add something. I didn't care one way or another that it happened because I enjoyed it. But I thought that's where I thought it was going to go, because that's how I've seen books like that go before. Really just Hunger Games. But I don't know. Those are just my 2 cents on that.
So you didn't care about where it went? I just didn't care. Sorry, Kieran. Sorry. But this is a point, though. It's a book that doesn't quite know what the story wants to be. Is it a Hunger Games? Is it a trial by fire? Is it a coming of age? Is it a triangle love story? And I think the last one is what it's trying to be the most. And maybe that's what plays out in the rest of the books. But and then you've also got this thing about the rebels, and is it the North rebels or the South rebels? And the North rebels are kind of wimps; they're not really rebels, but the South rebels are the ones that you've got to really watch out for, and that must be setting up some stuff for the next few books as well. So
there's a lot of setup. Maybe if you read book 2, and you aren't, but maybe if you read book 2, you'd say, "Oh, okay, some of these things are paying off."
Look, better reviews than Divergent. And certainly better reviews than Allegiant, which just gets savaged because of the way the ending was handled. And so in my mind, I didn't think there could be a worse book than Divergent, but I thought I'd found it in this, and it just I couldn't Oh,
Not for you.
no.
It wasn't for
Sorry.
you.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Well, speaking of that, would you rather give 2 takeaways or just one?
My takeaways won't be very popular, will they?
Oh, it depends how many Kira Cast listeners we get.
That's true. Look, I'll give you one, and this is a positive one. Even though it's not a great novel, I don't think there's lots of cheesy dialogue. There's lots of poor prose. There's some really weird statements like Celeste sucked her teeth. I don't know what that means. Does she mean she sucked air through her teeth?
Like,
yeah, well, that's sucking air through your teeth. That's not sucking your teeth. And anyway, I'm being very, very snarky now. But the positive side of it is a book can still be, and a story can still be really popular and well loved, even if it's from a writer's critique point of view, a poor story. So, something like many of the other books, some of the ones we haven't liked so much, something clearly resonated. So, if you have a story that you want to tell, or, if you see a book that even has lots of 1-star reviews, that doesn't mean that it won't resonate for you. It's, this is why people like some songs and not others, and why some people like some food and others don't,
Yeah, not all books are for all people.
Exactly. Yeah. What's your takeaway, Brian? You want to be a fairy princess?
Let's see. I love being a fairy princess.
You're getting a fitting for a fairy princess outfit.
Yeah, it's true. I got to get a tux fitting for my brother's wedding later. This book is like a combination of several different things. Obviously, it has a little bit of Divergent, a little bit of Hunger Games. And if you crib ideas from others, make it your own. And I think Kira Cass does this, for better or worse, in your opinion. But it's her own thing, for sure.
Yes.
It's not any of those other things.
Yes.
And I'm sure a lot of books that came out around that time were basically a Hunger Games ripoff, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
But this I wouldn't classify it as a ripoff of anything. It successfully used elements from multiple books.
Yeah, that's a fair call. I think, and in fact, while we're on that, normally I would mention whether this is appropriate for a particular age group. There is some kissing and some sexual content. It's not very, very explicit, but certainly I think you probably want to be 13, 14 and up. But young girls would like it. And that was one of the things. There was some discussion, I think, about virginity in there, which was it came out of the blue. It came from, like, where did that come from? And then it wasn't mentioned again. And I thought there was some slippage in there. This is a lovely book for younger girls, but it's actually not appropriate for them. Yeah. And so I was a little disappointed there. And in my view, my last takeaway is probably that I think for me, we've reviewed Cinder and we've reviewed The Testing, and to my mind, they're both better books, and they're both kind of variations of the girl meets the prince, or the Trial by Fire sort of Hunger Games kind of a thing. So in my opinion, they're better books. Whether that makes them more popular amongst the readership, well, your mileage may vary. Go and read it and tell us what you think. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I would love to hear. We actually have gotten some review suggestions, but no one has said, here's how my review differs from yours. I read it. And so, but my dad told me the other day, he started reading The Maze Runner after listening to our podcast. So that's the first I've heard of that. He said, I listened to your review and it made me want to read it. Right. So, okay. Well, that's good. Well, I hope your review of The Selection made people want to read it. And I hope people completely rebel against my cranky old man review and say, stuff him. I'm going to go and read it. It sounds really cool. I like fairy princesses. Yeah, who doesn't? And speaking of who doesn't, no, I don't know. That's not a segue to anything. I thought I'd do my prompt. Please you ready for a prompt? I'd love to hear a prompt. All right. What are some other reality shows that could be grafted onto a dystopia book? Which one would have the most promise and why? Simple. Just find a reality show and put it on there. I would be interested to hear what people say, because there's been some terrible, good, and there's just been bad and good reality shows, most of them terrible. But I'd really be interested to see which ones would kind of work in a dystopic world. For some reason, The Bachelor, for me, works really well in a
terrible, terrible future. Which is just funny.
There's all these wars going on around them, and the whole place has been ravaged, but they've got to have this beauty contest.
Exactly. So if you have a response to that, we would love to hear your story. We would love for you to use that prompt or any of the other prompts in the comments on thesplitbookreviews.com or on our YouTube channel for The Split. We would love it. Super love it if you subscribed to our podcast on iTunes, left a review, or if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We would love it. It's good to know when people are just, when we can see what people are doing, because we taped so many of these episodes before we released them. It's just great to see hard work go to good use. So, yeah, I'm glad The Split lived up to its name today.
That's right.
It's pretty awesome.
So, do you think you're going to put together a novella, Ted Kicks Butt on MasterChef?
Yeah, Ted Kicks Butt on MasterChef. That's great. Of course. Yeah. Ted hasn't done any cooking in the series yet. And we're through book 4, so we need to put some in, for sure. But
yeah, I do like when you think about the possibility of stories from, all the tropes that are around, then I agree with you. Kira Cass did a great job at lifting elements and still making it her own. So go read it and tell us what you think.
Please do. And next week, we're going to do 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher.
Why?
And why? Why? Because a lot of people like it. Well, they probably don't like it. They're sad by it. But we'll talk about that next week. So come check us back out on thesplitbookreviews.com, The Split on iTunes, or The Split on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate it.
We really do. And remember, between now and next week, just go search for your prince.
Words to live by. Thank you guys for watching. Somewhere on this page is a subscribe button to The Split channel. We do reviews every week. We would love it if you followed us every single week. Isn't that right, Robert?
That's exactly right. Follow us now. Hit the subscribe button.
Do it.